Action. Welcome, man. Madcap's Comedy Club, Greenroom podcast.
Bro,
Hanging out with my man.
What's up, man?
AJ Wilkerson, everybody.
What's up? Dude, this place is amazing. First of all, congratulations. The club is fucking fantastic, man.
Thanks, man.
I've been looking forward to coming here since I first started watching, like, the videos and stuff like we were just talking about.
I'm looking forward to having you here, bro. Shit, fuck that, man.
Man.
To finally get you here, man, and to people that I consider friends, you know what I mean, like that, to get on stage, that shit means a lot to me. More than even like some big name on stage, man.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. Actually, when you reached out to me about this, I had one other weekend already booked, not for this weekend, but before this weekend, and I actually rescheduled and moved that because I wanted this club to be the first club I actually headlined the weekend at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, this place is amazing.
Well, it's nothing without the comics that make it, man. I say it. I've been interviewed in a couple newspapers, magazines, whatever, but I say the same thing. It's a trifecta here, man. Without the comics, the crowd that supports it, and the audience, and the club itself, and the staff too, and that if that doesn't work together, you just got a weird room with a stage on it. You know what I mean?
No, you got a good little mix here, man. It's fantastic.
Well, you crushed last night, but I want to talk about the late show. I almost left the two chairs there just as kind of like a background.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys did great crushing together like that.
Dude, that was the first time we ever did that.
Couldn't tell.
So a couple weeks before I actually came down here, I was up in Indiana with Jason Muse, who I tour and feature for. But my buddy Jake came with me and did a bunch of guest spots. And then after the weekend, Jay was like, dude, do you think he wants to like come on the road and like travel with us and stuff? And Jake already like features on the road for like Dusty Slay, who just had his Netflix special.
Great special, by the way.
Yeah, bro.
It killed.
Yeah, and then Donnie Baker, you know,
Yeah.
You want to buy a boat?
Yeah.
You know? And so he already features for them. So he's like, yeah, dude, this is just another thing. And like me and him have been working together a lot because we just like when we first met, dude, like because we like clicked like linked up over social media.
Yeah.
And I was doing the World Series of Comedy up in Fort Wayne, and he just happened to have a show in Indianapolis that weekend. So I was like, dude, I'm going to come catch your show. And, dude, the first time we met in person, it just, like, clicked. It's like, oh, we were supposed to be friends this whole fucking time. You know what I mean?
Shout out Jake Rubles, a guy whose name I couldn't remember 4 times on stage. I'm way more professional than that. Not only did I ask him to say it and announce it while I was on stage, I forgot it again after he did that. My bad, Jake.
But, man, so, like, literally, like, 10 days before, like, I was coming down here, I was like, hey, like, have you booked a feature?
Yeah.
And I was like, I asked him if Jake could come with me. And, dude, yeah, this was the first time we ever went on stage together last night. And that was fucking cool, man.
Y'all had a thing.
Yeah, and that's our friendship, dude. Like, since we've met, it's just been like that. Like, it clicked instantly. So we were like, you know what, it's a lighter crowd. Like, it's going to be a little bit rowdier of a show anyway, so why not just, like, let's, like, fucking just wrangle them in together. You know what I mean? Maybe we can hold control of the room
Power in numbers.
better. Yeah, dude, it worked.
Yeah, it was fun to watch
It was
y'all
a lot
work.
of fun, bro.
Yeah, man. So I want to go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk to the comics, man, because I like them to tell their story. I like to reveal that story, right? What got you into comedy, the journey to comedy? What's that like?
Yeah, man. So I was 30. Maybe a year or so before that, but I'd already been divorced for a few years, and I'd started like having a bunch of like mental health issues. Like not just started, but they were getting worse, like progressively worse, and like got to the point where it felt like I wasn't really like living like a full life because of it. And I started trying to figure out what was going on. Eventually got diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Started working with a therapist. Got a medical marijuana prescription. And within a month of those two things, I was doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Like, I had literally, like, retreated from society for, like, over 3 years at that point where, like, I was only around certain people. I was basically a hermit.
Yeah.
And then a month after that, like, therapy, like medical marijuana, and I'm doing stand-up comedy.
What made you want to try stand-up? What pushed you there?
I always wanted to do it. Growing up, I used to like. My dad would like take me to school because it was like on the way to work for him, and then like summer jobs working with him in the truck. He would always like had like this big like case, like the zipper case of like cassette tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we would listen to like comedy albums.
No shit.
Yeah. So like one of the first comedy albums I ever heard was Ron White.
Yeah.
They Call Me Tater Salad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That
was
kills.
one of the first like albums like I listened to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my dad was into all the blue collar guys. So I, grew up on all of them, and then eventually and also like super old school like Jerry Clower.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
the old like storyteller comedian, like the origin of that stuff,
Yeah.
And it just like I don't know, it was something I always wanted to do, but because of all the shit I was dealing with mentally, I just did and like the anxiety I had, I was like, that's just not something I'll ever be able to do. Like I had at that point like my middle school had like a talent show.
Yeah.
And like I'd auditioned for the talent show. I was gonna like do stand up and like sing a song, I think.
Okay.
And
that's more brave than me. I'll do comedy all day, but I'm not singing.
Dude, like the day before I backed out, I just couldn't do it. And so I just like I don't know, I just thought I was like because of that like anxiety of being up in front of people, and I was like it's just not something I'll ever be able to do. But then, like, weed gave me, like, that fuck around and find out. Like, let's just.
That should be your. I mean? That should. Whose tagline is that?
That's me.
That should be yours, right? I don't know why I've heard that before. That needs to be on a T-shirt or a hashtag. I like that.
Yeah, man.
Remember the first time on stage?
Remember
the first time on stage?
Oh yeah, yeah. First time on stage was it was at the Midnight Open Mic in Gainesville. It was like an outdoor patio mic. And dude, I was terrible. I was so bad. I sucked. But like I got a couple of laughs, and that was like all I needed to get addicted.
That's like
to
the
it.
drug, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that like when you take like that first hit of like weed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you might not get all of it, you might not inhale all of it because you're coughing on it a little bit, but you're like, nah, I get it. Like I know what it's about now, and I want to keep doing this.
I'm sorry, but all I could think about was my first time tasting pussy.
Exact same thing. Or your first time fucking, like you're gonna come immediately, but then you're like, you're like, I want to do this.
I want to do that again. Yeah. So do you remember the joke? Do you remember any joke from that set?
I had this old bit about how like one time like a girl came in me.
Okay.
Because like she was on top and I was like thrusting up off the bed, kind of thing. But then like she like clamped up and locked my, while I was like elevated, but I'd already like released my butt cheeks to like return to the start position, and so just some of some of that fluid leaked down and around the external fuel cells and into my exhaust port, and yeah,
that's still you should still bring that up.
You know what? I think I'm gonna start bringing it back. I need to definitely like go back and look at it with like better eyes. You know what I mean? Like I'm a better comic now than I was when I first started. Like obviously. So I need to go back and relook at that and maybe bring it back.
What pushed you off on the road? Right, I know the background, but I want them to know what pushed you off on the road.
Yeah, so I got off to like a hot start with stand up. Like somebody like I had like a comedy dad. Like when I first started, like I'd maybe been doing open mics for like 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
And I got linked up with like somebody was like, oh hey, there's this like comedy like writers workshop on Sundays. So it's just a free workshop. You can go work on material and get ideas and stuff. So I started going, and the dude that ran it, Bob Smith, also ran like showcase shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I started going to workshops, like like building up material and figuring out like how to write and how to like be a comedian. And it just kept going like faster and faster, and like I think like a year in, I got selected for like this up and coming artist tour thing. So it was out of like Tallahassee with this company. We were doing like this like 18 city tour. So I moved like all of my stuff to Tallahassee to this house they had rented for some of us to stay in, and we were starting rehearsals for like the shows for the tour. And then 3 days later, like lockdown started.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm stuck in Tallahassee now in this like house that was rented for this tour that is now canceled. And luckily, like he had leased the house for like 6 months. So he's like, you can stay until the lease runs out, but then you gotta go, And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? Like, you know, I gave up everything to come here. Like, you know,
What do
so
you
I was
do?
like, yeah, I was like, either like I pack it in and I go home and I just like give up on this, or I was like, but I just reached this point where I was like, you know what? I'm willing to be homeless to be a comedian. So like, what's a version of that that lets me just be a comedian?
Yeah.
And I bought this piece of shit van for $1,000, built like a bed into it, got like this little solar battery thing, and just hit the road.
Just
Like,
gone.
yeah, as soon as cities started opening up, like I booked this like this just string of one-nighter shows and stuff, like from Florida to Texas, Colorado, like Kansas City, Nashville, Atlanta, and then back. So I was just like, let's just do a big circle and see what happens. And it went awesome. I got to Kansas City, did like a showcase show with a buddy of mine at this club, met the club owner. A couple weeks after I got back from the trip, that club posted like a contest, like, you know, like like a showcase style contest, and like the winner was gonna get to open for Jason Muse.
Oh wow.
So I messaged him and I was like, hey, like, can I like submitted like my video and stuff for the contest? And he's like, you like, are you still in town? Are you still in Kansas City? I was like, no, I'm in Florida. He's like, you want to come back to Kansas City for a fucking contest?
Yeah.
For like a free show? And I was like, yeah, because I was a big fan of Jay and Silent Bob. Like, I grew up on Kevin Smith movies and stuff, you know? So I was like, fuck yeah, Snooch, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I drove back and won the contest. And then I opened for Jason Muse. And the night I opened for him, like, I did like 10 minutes because it was like basically a guest spot. You know, there's still like a feature booked.
Yeah.
But I did 10 minutes, came off stage back into like the green room area to go back out to the lobby. And Jay's like buddy Matt, who like travels with him sometimes and like streams with him on Twitch and stuff, he was like, hey, like, do you have a couple minutes for me to talk to you? Like, Jay, like, you had a fantastic set, and Jay was wondering, like, are you able to like fly and travel? Like, would you want to come on the road and like open some shows for him? And then Jason fucking Muse sticks his head out of the green room and he's like, hey, Broseph, can you get on planes and shit? Like, yeah.
How did it feel at that point? What was the inside real reaction?
So here's the thing, like, I have this. So we've talked about it, like, I'm autistic. So part of that is like I struggle with like processing emotions.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
sure,
So a lot of times it's like it's like when a car flies by you too fast, like on the freeway or something, and you're like, oh, what state was their license plate from?
Yeah.
You know, it flies by too fast, and you're like, oh, I don't know, it was maybe this. You know what I mean? And now I'm on some on some medications and stuff that helps me like actually process it more in like real time.
Yeah.
But it was one of those like almost like an out of body experience, like, you know, like you just what's that word for it? Where you just like separate a little bit. You know what I mean? Like
I want to say like now
you're the psychologist.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. I don't
know. But yeah, where you just kind of like detach yourself from the situation, because it's like, you know, how do you prepare yourself for something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are you supposed to feel?
Yeah, right.
You know, so I just kind of just kind of detached, because you're like, is this really happening? Like, am I dreaming? Because this is like, you know, best case scenario. Like, how, like, there's no way I actually ended up with the best case scenario, right?
Right.
And then after that, like, I walked like out of the green room area, and the club owner was like back in that hallway, like as that was happening, and I went out front to smoke with Matt, the dude that was with Jay. Like, I went outside to smoke anyway because I was coming off stage, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go smoke too." Like, and we're out there talking, and he went back into Jay. And when I went to go back in the club, Dustin, the club manager up there at the Comedy Club of KC, he was like, "Hey man, come over here," and like took me to the bar, got me a drink, and he's like, "Dude, your life is about to change," and then toasted me. And I was like, "So that really happened?" You know what I mean? Like, I needed another person to confirm that was real.
But to get there, though, it took the sacrifice, man. I mean, you know, I think there's two sides to life on the road, right? And the idea that some people romanticize, all right, I'm going to get my van and I'm going to do that. And they romanticize this in some way. And some don't, right?
Right.
What's that life really like, man, doing
that? It is brutal, dude, because, like, I basically, when I was on the road, I was, like, not in, like, a nice, fancy camper van or anything like that, because there's not that kind of money in comedy when you're first starting out. You know what I mean? So literally I just the cheapest shit I could find to make work. So I had a 1987 GMC Safari van that used to be in like an older gentleman's like wheelchair van before he passed. So I got it. He was like my grandpa's neighbor, so my grandpa just set it up, and I bought it from his widow for like $1,000. Got it all fixed up and everything like that. Got it running, and it had that little like fiberglass topper on it, so I had a little bit more headroom in the back. And then I literally just with some plywood and some like metal pipe from like Lowe's, I built like a bunk in it, like a bed in the back. And then some like little totes and stuff to figure out all my shit. And I had some like old from like my old apartment. I had some like gear track like things from like you would normally use in a garage to like hang and it's got like different hooks and like a shelf attachment. So I just like put some of those up on the other side, like organized shit the best I could, and just hit the road. But it's brutal because I mean I'm basically sleeping on like a semi-truck mattress.
Yeah.
But not on like a semi-truck like bed frame or box sprit, like literally just some plywood and some metal rods. You know. And sleeping in the parking lots of truck stops, sleeping in rest areas, sleeping in like parks and stuff like that. And just the nonstop, because like in order to like, because the pay's not great, so in order to be able to afford that, like I have to stack as many shows as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I left Florida to go on that first tour, my first show was here in like the Daytona Beach area. And so I drove from Daytona Beach straight through to Austin. I literally pulled off in the middle of I-10, like past Tallahassee, like right at the Florida-Alabama line.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of I-10, they've got those big wide dividers with all the trees and shit, and I just found like a little clearing. I pulled the van in, slept in there, got up the next morning, and just kept on going. And it was, you know, like basically eating like garbage because I just filled like a tote with like almost like a snack box kind of thing. So beef jerky and raviolis and Vienna sausages and Spam and crackers, you know, just whatever I could. So I didn't have to stop and buy food because you're broke as shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like there were shows like I left, like I drove to, like knowing full well like if one of these shows cancels or one of these shows doesn't pay me, I'm not going to be able to make it home. Like I'm just there. Yeah. That's where I live now. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the dedication though that gets you that.
Well, it was the same way heading up to Kansas City. Like when I went to open for Jay, like I didn't have money to like just drive to Kansas City and back twice. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I drove for the contest and then had to like turn around, drove back to Florida, did like another like weekend of shows, then drove back to Kansas City 10 days later to go back to do the opening spot.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What's the van life like on the road though?
It's rough. I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. Because here's like the thing: like sleeping in parks, sleeping in like rest areas and truck stops. When you're like, no, I have to get here. Like I've got 12 hours between shows. I need to get there because I need this $80 to get to the next spot.
Yeah.
Those ones are rougher. But like when you get a little bit further in, when the pay's a little bit better, you're better at like scheduling, so you can figure out things closer together. You give yourself a little bit more time. Then it's fucking amazing, man. Because like my first time going to Jake's house, actually, we booked some shows together in Bloomington, Indiana, where he's from. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, I'm putting on this big show in my hometown, and then there's this other show in town in Bloomington on this day that I can book you at, and so you'll get paid for 2 shows, so come out for the weekend. And the first night I was there, him and his wife hooked me up with their they have like a state park pass for one of the state parks near there. So dude, I slept in a state park, woke up, like stretched, walked around, looked around, and then like drove through the park over to where this waterfall is, and then like hiked down to a waterfall, like walked out, like it's just like serene, you know what I mean? And it's like I wouldn't get that experience if I wasn't on the road like doing this for a living. Yeah,
it's like that movie Into the Wild, but with comedy.
Yeah. That's basically it, dude. I just decided, like I said, I realized I was like, I would rather be homeless to pursue comedy than like just work a regular job, like, and be able to like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like if I'm miserable, then I'm not really living. For you,
anyway. That hits though. So many other people go, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going, well, I'll work on comedy on the side a little bit when I'm not at my 9 to 5 or whatever job I'm working.
But that's the thing, the 9 to 5, like that, like doing something that you don't love, like just burns you out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like I already have so many issues with like focus and attention and like and just like with especially like with autism and ADHD, like just that being able to like keep your internal engine moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes you literally like. Have you heard of like spoon theory?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So sometimes you just don't have the spoons to do your regular shit. So then how are you supposed to do your extra shit?
And if you do, it's not all you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I flipped it, I just made that mental decision that like, no, comedy is my regular shit. Everything else is the extra shit.
I have found that in all the comics I've interviewed on here so far to be a common thread, right? So I set out with some goals on this podcast as I interview the headliners and some of the features that come on here, researching, right?
Mhm.
And so far, that's a common thread I have found, that the ones that are headlining, that make it, that are playing at Madcaps, right, and all over the country, make that decision.
Yep.
And sometimes this is at the worst time of their life.
Dude, I made that decision in the middle of a pandemic. I was like, hey, you know what I don't need is a job. You know what I don't need is money. Yeah, I don't need stability. That's for schmucks. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, James Yon, who was on here, made that decision, had a kid on the way, another kid there, not a lot of money. He's like, hey, honey, I'm going to do this thing called comedy. She's like, what's it pay? Like, nothing, right? And I'm going to be gone till like 11 o'clock at night, you know? So it seems like in these most pivotal or maybe weak moments is when people have made that decision, but have then made leaps and bounds from
So
that.
the people that make it are the people that are willing to bet on themselves.
Yeah.
And the people that are like the most brutally honest with themselves about their odds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you can bet on yourself all you want, but if you know you're the if you're just unwilling to admit that you're the slow horse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're just gonna lose money.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work out.
What's
But if you're like, you know what, I think I'm fast enough to run this race with these other fucking like stud horses, and you really believe that, then do it.
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out one way or another. And I'm figuring it out. Like I'm starting to win races. You know what I mean? Like I've been in the pack and I've been keeping up, but now I'm actually starting to win races.
Yeah.
So
What's your writing process like? Take it from idea, thought to stage time.
oh, mine's weird.
Huh?
Yeah, because I have a hard time, like, again, ADHD, I have a hard time sitting down and just, like, forcing myself to write. So
Mhm.
a lot of the time I'll think of something spontaneously. I'll say something out loud, like I'll be talking to somebody else, and I'll say something out loud, make myself laugh, and then be like, hold on, and then type that. Or a lot of times I do voice memos to myself.
Okay.
Like I'll think something funny out loud, and I'll say it out loud, and then I'll, like, go back, like, just start recording, like, on the voice memos, and just run through it out loud, because I'm more of like an auditory processing.
Yeah.
Like I do better like hearing it and seeing it. But if it's me, like I can already see it in my head, so now I need to hear it, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Like it doesn't translate the same in my head just reading it on paper.
Yeah.
So
So you're a thumb guy, not a writer.
right.
Yeah.
I'm more of just a talker. Like I'm like, okay, this is what it is. Let me hit the voice memos, and then I'll just speak it out loud, and then I'll go back and look at it. And like
Do you turn it from there? Do you go back and edit it, chop it up from there,
I
or
do.
what?
Like normally I'll go back and like, okay, this was funny. This is, maybe I need something different here, so on and so forth. Kind of like reorganize it. Like I'll figure out all the things that I thought was funny about whatever it is I was thinking, and then try and figure out how to like tell that in one unifying thing.
Gotcha.
Like how do I take this from where do I start and where do I end it, kind of thing.
How's the joke wind up on stage?
So weirdly, like I'll take something on stage, like it's reached the point where I know like 85% as soon as I like get it out and get it organized and like in my head and like kind of like the way I want it, I think I can usually tell like to a pretty high degree if it's gonna work or not.
Yeah.
There's
another common thread. That's another one I'm finding out.
Yeah, like and that's why like sometimes like bombing is just, it's gonna happen, right? It's inevitable. But I've realized like it's very hard for me to like fully bomb. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what how there are these shows that get booked in like the villages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, with all the old people, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll go on stage, I'll start like get into my material in those rooms, and if it's not working, I'll just transition. I'll move in, I'll figure out what it is they want, and I can just do that.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, okay, this isn't working, so let me just figure out what it is. And sometimes it's fucking with them. Sometimes it's, okay, they want to be involved. They want to feel involved. Sometimes they want to be made fun of. Like
Yeah.
those old people in the villages like being made fun of sometimes. You know, they like being called on their shit. You know, and some other, you know, like, so I might have, like, a couple bits that don't hit. But like, as far as full on, like, the entire time I'm on stage bombing, that's maybe happened, like, 4 times after the first, like, 4 or 5 months. You know what I mean?
What was the worst bomb you remember?
It was probably in the villages. Maybe the first one I did in the villages, because that was one of those things you figure out later on. So the first time in the villages, I was like, I'm just gonna do my material, and it sucked the whole way through. Cause they didn't get my references. They didn't, you know, they like not sure what's going on. Like, it was just just the disconnect because of the age difference.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I'm not out here writing jokes for, like, what was funny before World War II? You know what I mean? Like, no. So, but the second show, like, so that was when, like, they do, like, one show a night for, like, 3 nights kind of thing. And so the second night I, like, started, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, that's stupid, right? Like, I'm going to just do the same thing twice.
Expecting different results.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And comedy is one of those things, like, you have to be able to make those adjustments quickly, because, like, you know, like, let's say you're working out some new shit and you're going into rooms where, especially, like, out here, because we're not in, like, big cities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like being from here, like, I don't have, like, a New York City where I can hit up, like, 40 mics in a week.
Right,
you know,
right,
or,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, if you're going to a lot of the shows that I'm getting, like, my stage time at, like, I'm being paid to be there. Like, I'm getting, like, $40 for being there 15, 20 minutes kind of thing. So if I'm trying to work out new shit on those kinds of shows, I have to very quickly make those adjustments, because if not, they're not going to bring me back. They're not going to pay me to come back if I keep fucking up their shows.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to work the new material even in taking shows like that.
Not like that's the thing. You have to be like that's where it's like not like bet on yourself kind of thing. It's like, no, I'm going to take the risk. Like, I'm going to put this new joke between these jokes that I know work. So if this doesn't work, I can transition right back out into something that I know does work.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring that out. It's figuring out, okay, this didn't work. Let me switch to this, and then, okay, since I had to speed through that last bit because it wasn't working, like, I'm not just going to fully bail on it. Or if I do because it's just really not working, you know, I got to have a couple extra jokes in my pocket that I can pull out and throw in somewhere. So knowing, like, okay, it's a lot like I imagine it's a lot like plotting a course down, like, a river. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to know, like, okay, if like I'm going down this stream, oh, well, this stream dead end, so now I got to, like, double back and figure out, like, where to go here. Or if I'm going to take this side stream, I need to know, like, where it reconnects back to the main stream.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really just Lewis and Clarking it in my head as I go. You know what I mean?
So last couple of questions, man. What is your favorite thing about comedy?
I think it's comics. You know what I mean? Like, because comedy gave me something that I didn't have since I was in the Army. Like, I joined the military, like, almost right after high school. Was in for a couple years. Got out because I had some like, physical health issues and some mental health issues. But, like, the thing you have in the Army is you have, like, this brotherhood, right? This camaraderie that, like, doesn't matter if we bicker, we fight. Like, when push comes to shove, like I can fuck with you, but nobody else can fuck with you, kind of thing. You know, and it's something like you don't have a lot in, like, real life. Like, you might have, like, a close friend group that's like that, but when you're, like, basically, like, social distancing before it was mandated by the government, like, you don't have that. You know what I mean? And so you feel even more isolated. And that was what I was worried about when I first started traveling in the van and being on the road. It's like, I'm gonna be alone in, like, a tiny box with my own thoughts a lot. Like, am I gonna revert back to
jail.
that? Well, but yeah, am I gonna revert back to that feeling of isolation?
Sure.
But you show up at a show with other comics. You're like, you know what? I can't be, like, by myself right now. You pop into an open mic somewhere on the road, and everyone in there who also does stand up, you have, like, this shared connection with, And that same thing, like, we can fuck with each other, but nobody else can fuck with us.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
So you're not really alone.
You're not really alone. And, like, I meet people like you, and I meet people like Jake, and, like, the first time we met, like, I did your show at the Marriott.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we went out for drinks and had this amazing long conversation.
Yeah.
And then I slept in my van in your backyard,
Yeah.
and we hung out at your house. And, like, that's like, we had never met in person before then. Maybe, like, one time at an open mic, we had, like, dapped it up or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we spend this whole, like, night together. We have this great show. We have this amazing conversation and hang. And then, like, at the end, we're on your back patio, like, singing drunk and shit.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
freestyle rapping.
That's true. It's been known to happen.
Yeah. And, like, that's the most amazing thing about comedy is no matter where you go, like, if you're a comic, if you're part of this, like this fraternal order, fraternal makes it sound like it's gendered, but it's not. It's male comics, female comics, everybody. But if you're a part of this, like, no matter where you are, you're not far from somebody who like, can understand you, if that makes sense.
I do, man. Well, go ahead if you got
No,
more.
it's like that's just it. There's just, like, this whole network of people like us that just, like, you can sit down in a room together and immediately, even if you have nothing else in common, you come from completely different walks of life, you have this one thing that you're forever bonded over.
Man, it's even hard to ask another question. That's a great way to end it, man. But the last one, man, you pick which side you want to go, man. If you could go back and give yourself early advice when you got into comedy, or what advice would you give those early into comedy right now on what to do?
Early into comedy right now is you're new. Like, this is your opportunity to take risks. Like, do different shit. Figure out, like, okay, like, this joke, like, I've been working on it. It's getting laughs and it's doing well. I'm not going to tell this at open mics anymore. Like, start, like, and that's, like, one of the things I see, like a lot of young comics do. It's they've got, like, they get 5 minutes and then they do that same 5 minutes for 3 years. You're handicapping yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're limiting yourself because, like, you get, like, I very quickly, like, as soon as Bob, like, pulled me aside, like, maybe 2-3 months into comedy, because he had these 2 showcases at these different World of Beer locations, right? So the one was in the in a little, almost like a community subdivision kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, like, the only people that come to that location are people that live in that neighborhood. So
Sure.
It's a lot of repeat audiences.
Sure.
So the first time I did, like, the showcase there, I did 10 minutes, and it was the only 10 minutes I had at the time. But it went great. And afterwards, we had 2 conversations at the same time. He was like, listen, he's like, I know you've only been doing this a couple months, but I just want you to know what you just did in there was amazing. And if this was something you wanted to do for a living, you could pursue this as a career. And I was like, okay, bet. And then right after that, he's like, but I can't bring you back out here for at least, like, another, like, 3 weeks to a month so people forget your shit, kind of thing, right? And I took that as a challenge. I was like, okay, bet. And that was, like, a Thursday night. And by Sunday, when we showed up to workshop, I had a whole new 10 minutes ready to, like, start workshopping and stuff. And that's when he was like, seriously, do you want to do this for a living? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay. Like, he's like, I will do everything in my power to help you do this for a living.
That's
and that was it.
story.
Like, he would issue, like, things like that, like, he was, like, basically just, like, trying to teach me about comedy, but I was also taking those things as challenges.
Yeah.
And that's
So
what
you
you do.
technically you took your own advice at that age, really.
Oh, yeah.
Age in the comedy, I should say.
Well, I had, like I said, I had, like, a good mentor at that time. Like, I had, like, a comedy dad. And so that's the other thing is, like, find somebody who's, like, going to, like, willing to help you, like, no, like, hidden agenda, no, nothing like that. Just someone, like, those older road comics, dude. Like, they have nothing to gain by helping you, but almost every one of them is willing to sit down and give you advice. Like, I had guys like Dean Napolitano when I was just a couple months into comedy, like, sit down with me before a show and answer all of my questions and stuff like that. And James Yan is incredible. We just recently, like, linked up and worked together for the first time, and he was just one of the nicest people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so insightful and so much good information that it literally is just falling out of him. So if you, like, I understand when you first get into comedy, you want to be on stage, you want to be talking, you like, literally that's what you came out to do. It's like, I want people to listen to me, but you got to fucking listen first.
No,
like,
right, yeah.
That's the advice.
That's beautiful advice, man.
So when you're first starting, listen as much as you're talking.
I love it, man.
There you go.
Tell everybody where to find you, man.
AJWilkerson.com has all of my social media links and videos and stuff like that, but also my Instagram is AJ Wilkerson Comedy, and my TikTok, which is like my biggest platform of followers, is Captain Autism Comedy.
I left out one question that I ask
Yes.
everybody. What is or do you have like a process or a thing you do just before you go on stage?
Yeah, so actually, it's part of like what I talk about. Like,
What's your
when I talk
ritual,
about,
I should say?
Yeah, well, when I talk about like stimming and stuff like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so this is one of those like misunderstood things about like with autism and even ADHD, because there are ADHD, like there's ADHD stimming is like it's like those physical things like on stage, like my hands shake a little bit, and I rock a little bit, but it's less noticeable because I'm standing, so I'm not rocking as much. I transfer that into my hands, kind of thing. Like I just switch my stem to my hands. But so before shows, normally I'm like I smoke a little weed, like I try and like just get my head right, decent amount. But I also like. So I picked up like the handshaking stim, because stims can change over time. Like sometimes you just see like a behavior, or you see like a motion that like just lights up like the activity centers in your brain. You're like, ooh, that looks like fun. That looks cool. That looks like that would make that like that looks like it would make me feel good, kind of thing, you know? And I was watching the NBA Finals, and I was watching I think it was Golden State. But somebody was coming off of like, or was like waiting at the table to check in, and they were loosening up, and he started jumping up and down, like shaking it out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I bet that would like that might help some with the nerves and the anxiety. And so before shows, I would like smoke, and then I would go outside and like start jumping up and down and shaking my hands. And then it just slowly started like transitioning onto the stage. And I was like, why would I? Because I was working with my therapist one day, and we were talking about like I was talking about like being on stage. Sometimes I would like feel detached, because I was like, I can't process like emotionally the anxiety and stuff of being on stage, so I almost go into autopilot. So I'm talking, but I'm not on stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, basically like masking being autistic, because I was like, I want, you know, everybody, when you want to be the cool comic, you want to be smooth and, you know, like that. And but I was talking about stimming, and like how much mental energy it took to like mask my stems, like keep from stimming. And my therapist finally was like, well, you're already talking about being autistic, so why are you afraid to like
Be it.
Yeah, why are you afraid to just be autistic? Like, why are you hiding it still physically if you're talking about it?
Yeah.
I was like, that it just all clicked, and I was like, shit, okay, yeah. And so I stopped trying to stop it. And I got to use all that mental energy like back into actually what I'm doing and performing and being in the room with everybody and connecting, and it just took everything to like this whole other level.
Well, man, you are on another level. We are 6 minutes from opening the doors, man.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, crush tonight, man. Thanks
Will
for
do,
coming
bro.
and doing the podcast, brother.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it,
Thanks,
man.
bro.